Welcome everybody. My name is Luis from Attac Portugal. Most of those of you to whom I'm speaking, I've been with the whole day. We're having the International Attac meeting in Lisbon, the European Attac Network meeting in Lisbon. For the first time, it's a very big honor for us. This public session has a very clear objective. Its objective is to generate a debate around the responses to the crisis in the periphery of Europe. So this is not to say that we understand Europe as a core in the periphery, but there is indeed a core peripheral dynamics that we want to explore here. And there is a logic to the choice of speakers today. When we speak about how to solve the crisis in Portugal, generally Iceland is presented as a way out of the crisis, and this is very interesting. And Gunnar will talk a bit about that. Then we have the other perspective, the perspective of the creditor. And this is very interesting because Benedicta, who comes from Norway, can tell us a little bit more about how the dynamics of debt work from the other side. So Norway is a core creditor because of its, as you might know, its sovereign funds are probably the highest, has the highest volume of sovereign funds in the world, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So it's a very interesting perspective. And then, of course, we have Spain, to which we are inextricably linked. Whatever way we go in Portugal, any kind of solution, any kind of crisis is always linked to Spain. Whether we like it or not, that's the way it works. And I'm sorry, it is. Don't laugh, Christina, because you know it's true. So, in order to sort out the crisis, we need to know what's happening in Spain. And if we are to solve anything from our perspective, we need to be more attuned to what's happening in Spain. And so we invited Cristina from Attac Spain, and she will talk about the dynamics of social movements in Spain and how we can achieve a common way out of the crisis. Okay, so I will just a brief word of thanks to EGEAC and São Jorge, who kindly gave us this space and this venue to hold this meeting. And I will give the floor right now to Gunnar, who will initiate the debate, then Benedicta, then Cristina. Gunnar.
Thank you very much, Luis. My name is Gunnar Armason, and I'm from Iceland. I'm very much afraid that tonight I will kill this myth that Iceland is special. But I will just begin by telling you that in the autumn of 2008, the crisis hit Iceland and everything collapsed. And then we had this pot and pan revolution. And we succeeded in forcing the government from power. It was a neoliberal government, and we had a new election in the spring of 2009, and we elected a left-sided government, the strongest left-sided government in Iceland history, with a clear majority in the parliament. So it was a majority government, and we were really happy because they had made many promises to us. They would fight against the IMF, and they would bring justice to those people that were in debt and so on. But I'm very sorry to say that those guys broke all the promises. They just did as the neoliberals, more or less. Well, they increased the taxes on companies, so, well, it was maybe some difference, but no major difference. So we are very disappointed in Iceland. And the question is how, when democracy doesn't function in a country, you vote for some promises that are broken. What do you do? Do you do a revolution and kill a lot of people and so on? Well, that doesn't really sound good. So I and some other people are establishing a new political party to try to get into the parliament. So now I'm in the position to make some promises that I can then break when I come into the parliament, or rather my wife, because I'm not high on the list in this new party. So, and people have been protesting in Iceland, and sometimes they protest, huge amount of people protest, but there are several years since, so yeah, at least it was 2010 when we had the last big protest, and I've sometimes been thinking about why we have stopped protesting, and do people, well, people felt that though they were protesting in huge numbers, nothing changed. This left-sided government continued to do exactly as IMF and the bankers told them to do, and nothing changed. And now we are hoping that people will vote for a change, but when we are doing polls in Iceland, it seems they're going to vote for the same old parties as before, and so I'm rather disappointing, and I'm thinking, what is the possibility to do? Are people stupid or not? Why don't they vote for people that want to make change? So it's a very difficult situation now in Iceland, and somehow I have the feeling that people don't have any power actually, except for voting every 4th year, and they don't bother to protest, and they don't believe in the new party. So we have a great problem with democracy, how to execute this democratic right we have. So that's the situation actually now in Iceland. That was my introduction, so then I can answer some specific questions about how it's going on in Iceland. Thank you.
Okay, so we'll, after this not very happy introductory remark, but we'll get to the bottom of it soon, I hope. I'll give the floor to Benedicte and Norway, and how things are going there.
Thank you. Boa noite, todos e todos. I'm going to speak in English. So I also come from a country outside the European Union, and I also come from a country which has not been hit by the crisis. So in that way, we are in a lucky position. That has several reasons. One is that we do have the biggest sovereign fund in the world, with the petroleum fund, and also we had the national sovereignty to choose our own political track when the financial crisis hit. But then again, the national sovereignty that we have has not always helped, doesn't help other people that much. So even though we made it and we're good, we're making it worse for other people. When the crisis hit in 2007, 2008, the politics of the government was counter-cyclical. It was to increase the public investments. It was to do the opposite of what's going on in Europe now, what's going on here in Portugal. We invested in schools, we invested in roads and infrastructure because we wanted to keep the economy going and make sure that we didn't get the economic backlash. And that was a good thing. Another thing which was not good was that we also had the opportunity to help Iceland when it crashed. There was a demand in Norway from a lot of organizations and left politicians saying that we could loan money to Iceland with really low or zero interest rate without conditions, so they would escape the IMF. But instead, we increased our loans to the IMF. So we have this national sovereignty, which is good sometimes, but then if it's not used the right way, we see that it can be bad for other people. And so, I'm sorry, Iceland. Attac was campaigning on this when this happened, that we should help one of our closest neighbors. Another thing that we see now is that our politics of increasing the public investments is completely opposite of what we are a part of doing in Europe. Norway is a big creditor in Europe. There are a lot of countries and EU institutions that borrow money from Norway, either through the Petroleum Fund or through the IMF loans that we give. So with this, we are imposing the austerity measures in Europe. We are imposing the politics that we do not want ourselves. We are imposing the politics that the social democratic government in Norway are claiming to be against, but only when it comes to within the Norwegian borders. This is a big shame. So our excess of capital is creating debt other places because we're not using these for good investments. We're not using these for environmental investments, for infrastructure investments. We're not using these for good investments in, for instance, poorer countries or investments in infrastructure investments in our own country. We're using this in the financial market. We put the whole sovereign fund out on the financial market. This, with the sovereign fund, we've invested in the EFSF, which is the European Financial Stability Fund, one of the many abbreviations we're facing right now. And we know that the EFSF has strict conditions on the money given to the crisis-ridden countries. We've given several billions to the IMF, and we have not said to the IMF that these money need to go to actually making good economic growth or environmental projects. We're giving this without conditions and leaving it to the IMF and the Troika to make the conditions. This is, of course, is a huge shame, and I was once in a debate and I got to confront our Minister of Foreign Affairs on these policies. And I said to him that this is not fair. We cannot make money on the crisis in Europe. These are our neighboring countries. This is the most unsolidaric politics that we could have. And then he basically said that, well, we're making money on the crisis and we should not be ashamed of it. And I was shocked. It was a horrible statement. So these are the social democratic left-wing government that we have. But in also ruining the economy and the welfare in other countries, it will in the long run ruin our own situation. We have a strong welfare state, and this is the majority of people really want to have a strong welfare state. In several polls says that people are also willing to pay more tax if they just see that it goes to a welfare state. Everybody wants to have a strong welfare state, or the great majority. But if we are imposing a policy in other countries which is tearing down the welfare states around us, it will be very hard, if not impossible, for us to keep the welfare level that we are having. And this is something that I think our politicians are not taking into consideration, or They're not just they're just not telling us that they have a hidden agenda or something. I'm not sure. So that is one thing, and also we have our own industry. We have a export industry, and if we ruin our biggest export markets, which are our neighbors in Europe, then we will not have an industry ourselves either. So in the long run, we ruin it for ourselves, and right now we're ruining it for our neighboring countries. So we're campaigning on this in Norway right now. We've written a report which says it's called On the Other Side of the Financial Crisis, Norway as a Creditor. Because we need a debate in Norway about this. We need a debate on our role, because we think that sometimes we really have this self-image of being so nice and solidaric, and like we give the most aid, and we are just a nice country. And so there's a need for people to know what actually is our role in Europe, which is not solidaric at all. And what we also need, and this is my appeal to you, we need you to tell Norway to stop with these policies. We need you to say that the sovereign fund, the way it's invested and used in speculation in the financial market right now, are ruining your livelihoods. You need to tell that to Norway. You need to say that to the Norwegian government. We need people to say that Norway could use the IMF funds for something completely different. And that there's a need for investment in jobs, there's a need for investment in environmental technology, there's a need for investment in a lot of other things, and welfare state and public expenditure, but not on more speculation, more money on the financial markets, and definitely not giving money that is controlled by the Troika and ruining the livelihoods in Europe. So we need to work on this together. We need you to help us tell the Norwegian government that they need to stop on doing this, and we'll do our best in doing this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benedicta. Effectively, the other side of the crisis, if we can say it like this, is very, very important to understand. Now I'll give the floor to Cristina, and I'm sure she'll tell us lots of interesting things about Spain, which at least it is my perception, that we sometimes think we know a lot about in Portugal, but we actually don't know all that much. So, Cristina.
Buenas noches. Estaba pensando que una buena manera de contradecir el mito de la periferia es hablar en español hoy, que creo que entenderéis mejor que el inglés. Cuando me dicen periferia, yo siempre pregunto, ¿periferia de qué? Somos el corazón de Europa, no la periferia. Just to translate in English, I was saying that a good manner of contradicting the periferia mythos is to speak Spanish in this occasion where we are so near to our neighbors, and we are better understood with Latin languages. So I have to say sorry, but I will continue in Spanish for the benefit of the Portuguese publicum. Estoy contenta de que Luis diga que creemos saber mucho unos de otros, pero en verdad somos totalmente extraños, y yo creo que al menos en los movimientos españoles lo hemos vivido así, que por primera vez con esta crisis, cuando veíamos a la gente en Portugal salir a la calle y nosotros también estábamos en la calle, por primera vez hemos pensado, estamos más cerca que nunca, porque siempre hemos vivido muy de espaldas. La situación en España, creo que algo saldrá aquí en la prensa, es muy parecida. Tenemos un movimiento ciudadano muy organizado, muy fuerte, pero la verdad es que no soy mucho más optimista que Gunnar, porque, como decía el compañero de Islandia, cuando más protestas, cuando más masivas las movilizaciones, más dicen los políticos, bueno, están protestando, o sea, lo estamos haciendo bien porque estamos haciendo políticas que son impopulares, como se está demostrando en las manifestaciones. Así que hemos organizado grandes protestas a través del movimiento 15M. Ahora estamos trabajando en una gran coalición con los sindicatos, con profesores, con personal sanitario, con el gran movimiento que hay para luchar contra los desalojos de los bancos, etc. Tenemos asambleas vecinales cada semana, pero de alguna manera, aunque nosotros somos más fuertes y nos organizamos mejor, como sabéis, no tenemos ningún éxito que compartir con vosotros. Me gustaría que fuera diferente, poder venir aquí y deciros hemos conseguido esto, pero la verdad es que tenemos la sensación de una gran pérdida de confianza en las instituciones porque votes lo que votes, no ves un cambio real. También tenemos grandes problemas con la ley electoral que impide de facto que acceda a ningún tercer grupo político que quizás sí pudiera cambiar las cosas. Tenemos un sistema que beneficia mucho a los dos grandes partidos, con lo cual tenemos una sensación de pérdida total de confianza que solo te deja el camino de la revolución, como decía Gunnar, pero este camino es un camino muy lento. Creo que tanto en Portugal como en España lo hemos vivido, lo que costó quitarse de encima las dictaduras de los 70. Entonces, bueno, yo creo que una parte optimista sí que puedo dar, y es que de nuevo creo que estamos volviendo a percibir el problema en lo que es, porque el capitalismo se llama otra vez capitalismo, cosa que no pasaba hace unos pocos días, y estoy muy interesada en compartir con vosotros cómo veis, cuáles estrategias pueden ayudarnos a los pueblos ibéricos a superar la situación que compartimos.